put in for an interim study about some services that we can consolidate for the local school districts to free up money. And one of the things that I'm focused on is removing some of these mandates. North Texas has actually got some of the best school districts in the state, and that's because our parents are involved and our school board people listen for the most part, and they can spend our money way better than Austin can. So what we're trying to do is pulling back some of those mandates so they're freed up to use the money that they have as they see fit instead of legislators in Austin. Does that answer your question? Okay. Anybody else? Bill Eastland.
Jonathan, this is a party question related to the Republican Party. Those of us that are looking forward to 2016, we see the National Party establishment wanting to shorten up the primary season and game it so that a Northeastern liberal will become our nominee, which I think is a prescription for disaster. Key to that is Texas will have its primary on March 1st. We may wind up, because of a recent change in party rules, a winner-take-all situation. And we have a primary that's an open primary where people who are not Republicans can come in and vote in our primary. It becomes attractive for Democrats and non-Republicans to come in and skew our results. We could very well send almost all of our delegates to the National Convention pledged to Chris Christie, not to a good conservative. Can we see the next legislature close our primary, create party registration in Texas so that only Republicans will be able to vote in our primary?
I think that's a good question, Bill, and I'll be honest with you. That sounds really, really good to me right now. But I'm not prepared to take a stance on it because I just don't know all the implications yet. I will tell you that I recognize Democrats haven't run in District 92 in a lot of years. And one of the things that I learned, as some of you know, and some of you are here because of it, I knocked on over 7,000 doors in HEB when I ran for state representative because I wanted to talk to you. I knew that's what it was going to take to win, and I sought to represent you, not the special interests down in Austin. And one of the things I learned, because I had a list similar to what he was talking about, was there's a lot of Democrats who vote in the Republican primary out here because they don't have a reason to vote in the Democrat primary. So it is a very real problem. I'm not quite sure I'm ready to commit on what the answer is, but I will tell you that I'm very open to it.
We'll talk.
And we'll talk. Yes, sir.
You were talking earlier about how you were trying to reprioritize spending, so instead of spending money on some Hollywood film subsidy or the countless things I'm sure you could probably mention, you were wanting to spend that money to make whole the teachers' pension fund. Can you talk a little bit about that unfunded liability? Can you talk a little bit about what I wanted to mention is how many Republicans opposed doing that? It wasn't just Democrats.
There were a number of conservatives, about 22 conservative legislators, who during the budget process, we sat down and we said, look, it's easy to go down here and vote no on everything, but we want to offer solutions to these problems. It's easy to say you want to cut government and cut taxes and cut spending, but what does that actually mean? So a group of us got into a room a couple of weeks before and said, let's figure out where the waste is and where that money needs to go and set the example for the budget instead of just yelling and screaming about it. So many of us proposed amendments to take money from there and put it where we thought that it needed to go. Unfortunately, that's about the number of votes that we ended up with. Sadly, I'll be honest with you, on the retired teacher side of things, the establishment down in Austin actually worked against us, and it was very sad. What we did, we were taking all these out and putting it towards the retired teachers fund. The night before, the moderate Republicans got with the lobbyists for the retired teachers down in Austin and got them, their organization, to actually come out against our efforts to fund their own program. Which was very strange, because the retired teachers that I talked to back at home were praising our efforts, but the establishment lobbyists in Austin were playing political games. It's one of the realities of Austin. It's one of the reasons why we made quite a few people mad, because I was far more interested in actually representing the retired teachers and their interests instead of playing those games. So sadly, on some of those efforts, we ended up with about 20 to 25, depending on the issue. Yes, sir.
You talked about it earlier about
water, it's on the constitutional amendments thing for that $2 billion that we're going to set aside. What is the voter's option if we vote it down? We know water is critical. You mentioned that the legislature didn't do their job and took the funds away from the increased sales tax and all that. But, you know, I'm prone to vote against that amendment because the legislature didn't do their job.
They kicked the can down the road. And I haven't taken an official position. I'm not going to be lobbying one way or the other because I feel like it's a bad situation all the way around. But I will tell you this, I voted for the mechanism, fought to take money to fund it out of GR instead of the rainy day fund. I then voted against taking money out of the rainy day fund and even going on the ballot because I felt like Austin should deal with the problem instead of kicking it off to the voters to deal with. And I personally will be voting against it on the ballot in November, if that answers your question. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, being one of those yelling and screaming kind of people, I would really love to go down to Austin to testify on a bill that did completely abolish abortion and did actually free up our Second Amendment rights to a true open carry like a lot of other states have, not a pretty please open carry. So if there's any way that your friends can get together and at least file some bills, even if they die, you can't control what everybody else does, but represent us and get those bills filed, that would be great.
And I agree with you. I will tell you that I followed a bill that had to do with CHL expanding gun rights in the state. We got it through the committee and it's still pending in committee right now. Unfortunately, and fortunately, this system is designed to kill bills. Between 8,000 and 9,000 bills are filed every session. About 1,500 of them become law, and a majority of those are local issues that only have to do with a specific area. Unfortunately, we had some leadership problems down in Austin, and we had Republicans who appointed Democrats to key committees that all of our gun bills and, at the time, our pro-life agenda never saw the light of day. It wasn't until Governor Perry came in a special session where he set the agenda that we actually got that done. Yes?
I've got two things. One, it's open carry. That tells the bad guy he's going to shoot me first if I'm carrying open.
My choice though, you know?
My whole take on open carry, just so you know, is that we always have to have the option. I'm not willing to trade a CHL for open carry. It's got to be both, where I get to make the decision myself or nothing.
I saw on your handout where you want the teachers to pay Social Security. Is that going to be instead of getting their pension? Because I know a lot of government pensions give government people, I know the federal government has this, they get equal pay. I'm newly retired. I had a 401k. I do not get anywhere near what my paycheck was when I was working.
Well, let me address that. The handout that you got on the bill or the mailer that you received, we are limited on what we can actually say. So there was that. What that sought to do was update you on some of the situations. It doesn't mean that I necessarily voted that way. So I voted to keep the Texas retired teachers the same as it was before, but we did report in that some of the changes that occurred.
So they will be getting paid.
Look, I have a moral problem with making a promise to a retired teacher and then coming back on that promise when they're they're making decisions basing their lives, their financial planning on one set of rules, and you can't go in and change that because you messed up your budget before.
I understand that, but my objection is, and I know they don't pay teachers nearly enough, but my objection is that in addition to Social Security, that...
Well, teachers don't receive Social Security.
But there's an option there. I know some school districts say either or. And I'm just wondering, is this going to be in addition to, or is it going to be because of?
I believe that it's still under the school districts, that they can decide themselves. Yeah. Yes, sir. Border security was another one of those issues that we did absolutely nothing on. And it frustrated me all get out. We actually had some good bills. We had a great bill that would have ended in-state college tuition for illegal immigrants. That's the problem at the border right now, is we've got too many incentives for people to come over here and break the law and stay illegally. Now, I'm passionate about this issue because it really makes me mad. I've seen the numbers that we end up paying due to illegal immigration. And we get painted as extremists or racists or bigots or what have you because of this position. But let me tell you something. I am pro-immigration. But you have to play by the same rules as everybody else. We are paying taxes for these roads. We are paying taxes for these services. We are registered. They know who we are. These people are not playing by the rules. And I'm sick and tired of it. This comes back to the problem with leadership. And we're going to have to get to a point where these things start coming out of committee. I mean, there were good bills that died that didn't even have to do with the border issue at all, but they died because of there would have been amendments that were germane to deal with the border issue. They won't even go near it with a 10-foot pole. And we're going to have not just Republicans. Look, most of us, I think, are Republicans in this room, and I'm going to tell you something. It wasn't always just the Democrats that I was fighting down in Austin. It was liberals who ran as Republicans that I fought with the most down in Austin. Being Republican is not going to solve this state's problem. We had 94 Republicans in the Texas House. We have near had a supermajority. But we had a lot of Republicans that vote like Democrats. And that's the real problem.
Would you have him stand, please?
Well,
He's got crutches. I'll relay it.
okay, is that better? Yes, I'd like to bring people's attention that when the federal government, through an organization or whatever it is, I don't even know, but they call themselves the Internal Revenue Service, when they seize property, they do it through a lien, but they have to do it through a state level, which means the county level. And they can do it through the mail system without a court order, so to speak. But actually, they really do need a court order through 28 section 2463, but I don't want to get caught in the weeds. But what I'd like to see, if at all possible, is for the state to pass a law that would require the Internal Revenue Service agents to come down and do it personally at the courthouse while showing proper ID that can be validated rather than through the mail. Seizing property through the mail has got to stop.
Seizing property is a very sensitive issue, and it's not just a problem with tax issues. We have eminent domain issues in this state, and our property is constantly under attack by a lot of different entities. Look, on an issue like that, if Washington keeps going the same way that it is right now, we're going to have a showdown with the federal government on a number of issues, okay? Where we draw a line in the sand as a state and say, well, we believe in the 10th Amendment, and you're not coming any further. And dealing with the IRS is another one of those things that we're going to have that showdown and figure out who's in charge.
Yeah.
I'd like to bring to everybody's attention, there are treasury orders out there, and one of them is Treasury Order 150-06, which canceled the Internal Revenue Service designation back in 2005. There's also federal laws that say if you send a fraudulent document to the federal government, you've just committed a crime. So every 1040 form that says Department of Treasury, Internal Revenue Service on it is a fraudulent document, in my opinion, before the first drop of ink is even applied to it, and it's in violation of 7207 of Title 26. So know that when you sign that thing under penalty of perjury on April 15th. Keep that in mind.
Thank you.
Please.
Bill, again.
Thank you. Since the issue of taxes came up, I thought I'd bring up state taxes. And were you familiar with George Lavender's bill? And that he filed, of course, it was one of those that got killed, but did get a hearing towards the end, designed to eliminate the property tax in Texas. Were you familiar with that?
I am familiar with that. I would like to get rid of property taxes. You don't truly own your home unless we get rid of property taxes. I'm just going to tell you that. You're renting it from the state, if you will. But let me tell you this too. I have not seen a solution yet in final form that's going to take the place of property tax. And we need to find it and we need to look into it. Because let me tell you something, whether you like it or not, it's very clear in our Constitution that we have to offer a public education in the state of Texas. That was ratified by the people, okay, an equitable one. So we're going to have to find a stable source to replace that. And I have not seen anything yet. You know, some people want to move to, or they want to raise sales tax or what have you, but there's a problem that some counties instantly go into the red and some go into the black, and I'm not going to get into a situation where we're taking from the black to give to the red. So, yes, property taxes is a problem. No, I don't think we've come up with what the correct solution is yet.
But you want to work on it, right?
I am working on it. Yes, ma'am.
You want to discuss?
Yes.
And it's kind of hard to see that nowadays how can you live in Texas? Everything is stored, and then the commercial providers of emails are storing the information, pulling the information. How can you? It's a great thing to leave the nation toward more privacy. But how do you actually implement?
The way that the bill was written was to cover the citizens that owned it, okay? And I've talked to General Abbott, our Attorney General, about this extensively. He thinks that we can stop federal agents, we can stop anybody from touching anyone in Texas. Part of the cool thing about being the first in the nation is we've literally been contacted by 3 digital service companies who are moving to Texas because of that law. They believe that that law will actually protect not only Texans, but it was written so that it would cover Texans and businesses in Texas that go outside. So it was a job creator as well. Yes, sir.
You touched on job creation. I'm for sustainable government. I like what you're talking about, some of your ideas. What I'd like to look at is, what are we going to do about jobs? Creating some kind of format, something about American Airlines and the whole concept of what's going on there. I think you've got a lot of great things on your platform, don't get me wrong. But these issues of growth, continued growth, and not just cutting and taxes, and I want sustainable government. Can you speak to that?
Yes, I can. A couple of different things. Like we have the 2 biggest employers in House District 92 are Bell Helicopter and American Airlines. And I want you to know that I have personally come out against what Greg Abbott is doing and going against the merger of American Airlines. I don't care if he's a Republican or not, we're going to be consistent. And the consistent message is that you stay out of what private business wants to do. So I'm against that. I think part of the solution to that problem too is vocational training in school. Okay? There's not one track of success for every student. What we've said in the state of Texas over the last few years is you have to go to college. It's the only thing that's going to make you successful. This one path. There are a lot more paths than that. I'm very interested in expanding vocational training so that we have a solid workforce. I know that Bell Helicopter is working with local school districts. I know that they've talked to HEB about it as well. Taking these kids who are juniors and seniors and training them to be givers and not takers on society. We have a great oil and gas industry here in the state of Texas that we could be training some of those kids for jobs and educate our workforce, not just for school, but for these great middle-class jobs that we have available here in the state. Does that answer your question? Yes,
Just wondering if you could do something at your level to maybe start with Texas as the first one, maybe to institute English as your official language.
We spend millions of dollars every year putting things in different languages here in the state. That was a bill that was filed. It was a bill that I would have voted for, and unfortunately it didn't make it through the process. But yes, I would.
And you're going to keep giving it to them?
Yes, I mean, there is a coalition of conservatives down there, so I can't tell you that I'll be the one to file it. Frankly, I think it would be smarter politically for one of our Hispanic conservatives to file that bill, rather than just another, white guy filing that bill, if you will. So we're sensitive to that, but yes, there are a number of ways that we can not only save money and make our state safer, but we just have to do that. Yes, sir.
Council of Governments, we got councils of governments all over the state of Texas, we got the North Texas Council of Governments. How is that funded? And I know a lot of the cities belong to them and that kind of stuff, but the funding, I think, comes out of Austin, does it not?
Some of it does, yes. And you're talking about Agenda 21 or a lot of Agenda 21 stuff there. And let me tell you, look, I'm about as small government of a guy as you could possibly get, right? I don't want to tell anybody what they can or can't do. I have no problems with cities organizing. Hearst, Euless, and Bedford have always done a good job coordinating police departments, fire departments for coverage to save money. These are all good things, and we need to be talking with other cities and whatnot. But what has happened with Agenda 21, where the liberals have come in and convinced Austin to pay for all of these governments and these things to set up, and then shoving that agenda down as almost a mandate itself, is absolutely wrong. And Austin shouldn't be paying for it at all. Does that answer your question?
What is the sentiment these days in Austin about red light cameras? First, it's an abomination, and it's nickel and diming citizens at a certain second level, in my opinion. Because they're not running red lights. People run red lights inside, they don't run red light. Everybody else seems to get caught in some kind of time delay, or less than a second, and then suddenly you get a summons.
I'm absolutely opposed to red light cameras because, let me tell you, the police, and I'm a big supporter of police officers, but their goal should not be running around fundraising. Their goal should be enforcing the law, okay? And, but the biggest reason that I'm against red light cameras are for privacy reasons. I don't think it's the government's job to be watching everything we do. Where I'm driving, what time my car passed through a red light, how fast I was going, you know, who was sitting next to me, all these different things. When you go and you get a red light ticket and you go down there, they'll show you the film. How many people actually drive down the streets with the knowledge that the government is filming you all the time? It is a major problem. And let me say this, I don't have a problem with technology. I think we need to embrace it. I do. But not at the expense of our Fourth Amendment rights. Let me get there. Yes, ma'am.
Is Texas into building more oil wells and, you know, taking on gas and for a lot of the ground for the President Obama or stuff, most of that?
Most of that's going to be handled like EPA regulations. The Railroad Commission are going to be the ones who are fighting that on a regular basis. But look, the Lord has blessed us with abundant resources for a reason. And they're a great job creator. I believe that energy independence is one of the most important things that we can do for our security. And oil and gas is my profession. I was one of 3 members of the Texas House who are in the oil and gas industry. So I was very up to date. Good for us. They didn't come and mess with us too much. But we're constantly one step away from the federal government coming in and giving us a big problem. What we're looking at right now is they want to make this lizard a endangered species and then stop all of the oil production up in the Permian Basin. So that's what we're looking at right now. But overall, in general, Texas has done a very good job at regulating oil and gas so it's safe, enforcing property rights. Texas has got some of the best property rights on the books in regards to oil and gas, and we need to protect that. Yes, sir.
Jonathan, at the Townhall in South Lake, you mentioned how you were wined and dined by the lobbyists and all these different things. Is there some way that we as citizens could kind of profile these lobbyists and kind of turn them into more of a nuisance instead of this secret person who operates and just affects people like you?
Yes. There are, I believe, 18,000 registered lobbyists in the state of Texas right now. And one of the things that we need to do, and I'm actually working on a bill that will end taxpayer-funded lobbyists. So what's happened in a lot of these situations are public entities are taking your tax dollars and going to hire a lobbyist to come down to Austin to lobby us for more tax dollars.
Whoa.
It's pretty ridiculous. But the biggest thing that we need to do, and I've talked about this a lot, the insiders coming at you, trying to take you over, pull you away from folks like yourself, and make you feel like you're more important or you're smarter or you know things that they didn't do. What we need to do is I need you guys to understand that that's what we're up against. An educated electorate is the answer to those problems. You being involved in your government, showing up to an event like this, telling me how you feel, is what is going to stop that. Because the money isn't going to stop it. They've got all the money in the world. But I will tell you this, legislators listen to their constituents. I can tell you every single fax that Darrell Easton ever sent me, because I document them, because they mean something to me. And when you call my office, my staff will tell you, I get a daily summary of every single call that came in to our office, and I read what you wrote. Talking with your legislators, meeting with them, coming to the town hall is how we're really going to stop that problem. Make your voice louder than the lobbyists. Yes, sir.
Yesterday, a U.S. Attorney General alluded to the fact that if we continue with the voter ID card, we will sue state taxes.
I am aware that we've got a legal fight on the voter ID. As it stands right now, you will have to show a photo ID to vote in the next election. Yes, ma'am.
What's happening with the indoctrination of our children in schools with Common Core and Cisco? Do you have any ideas?
It's bad news. I mean, look, the biggest problem with C-Scope, and if you don't know what's going on, okay, we're offering C-Scope. The state is putting something together and offering it to all this other stuff. We actually had an incident just in Denton ISD where I saw some material in one of the textbooks provided by C-Scope that completely changed to the Second Amendment. Like, literally completely changed to the Second Amendment in a history book. The answer to this is accountability and transparency, because the problem with C-Scope is that we were hiding what they were doing from parents and educators. And we didn't know what was going on and spending millions of dollars for it. So I absolutely oppose C-Scope. I think we've got some candidates here that are running in this area for school board who are against C-Scope, and we're going to have to educate ourselves on what's going on. But let me tell you something. One of the biggest dangers to our freedoms and liberties is the indoctrination of our kids. And parents have to take personal responsibility for what their kids are coming home with and what they're hearing.
Back to the voter ID, something all of us need to understand. You have to show ID, but it also has to match exactly your voter ID card.
Right.
And you better check it.
Yeah. And let me speak to that just a little bit more in regards to the Attorney General, because the Attorney General is the guy who goes and fights the federal government for the laws that we pass in the state, defends the state. You have a huge election coming up for Attorney General. It is going to be one of the most important positions in elected government in Texas, because if we get that position wrong, doesn't really matter what we pass in the state. So we've got 3 candidates out there. I'm supporting Ken Paxton for that race because I believe he's the true constitutional conservative. But don't just take my word for it. Look into the race. Vet these candidates. Vet them.
They'll be in Fort Worth Monday night.
There you go. Did you have a question?
I wanted to follow up on C-Scope and Common Core. Is there any plan to further rein in the open checkbook that we have with Pearson Corporation, who over my last 10 years of my career took billions of dollars from the state of Texas, in my opinion, unnecessarily, to manipulate our data on our testing to come out however they wanted to or whoever was in charge?
Pearson Publishing is one of the most corrupt organizations in the state of Texas, because they mask themselves as caring about the kids or public educators and teachers, but I will tell you, they're some of the most cutthroat people down in Austin. They spend more money than anybody else, and they say one thing and turn around and cut you in the back. We have got to free our school systems from that lobby to get anywhere. I agree with you completely.
Who has that, who signs those checks to Pearson?
Well, I mean, right now, they're the ones that make money on all the testing.
Well, right.
They're the ones that make all the money on the textbooks and everything else. And we have to start vetting these people. And like I said, the answer to that is really transparency, because a lot of it, we don't know where it's coming from, or we don't know what's going on because it's not listed anywhere.
Well, they control that test, so they're actually controlling what we're teaching.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think we started to get somewhere on that, and we've got some people who are lobbying for public education that understand all of those aspects and are moving towards reform. Does that answer your question? Anybody else? Yes, sir.
My name is Rodney DeGreat, and unfortunately, Bill, I happen to be a Democrat. So I may be the lizard in the room.
Still got my primary.
The only issue is, it's not thinking as a Republican or thinking as a Democrat, it's thinking as an American. When you have laws and they make laws, make sure that you do that as an American citizen. That it is equality for all American citizens. That's what's missing in our government, that's what's missing in Texas, and that's what's missing in D.C. What we have to do is, and I greatly appreciate the things that you said, despite the fact that I am a Democrat, I do respect a lot of things that you have said today. A lot of the representatives here have acknowledged me and educated me on some of the things that you have said, and I greatly appreciate that. I do have a concern as far as the water is concerned. We cannot live without clean water. That's a fact. Majority of the world is full of water, and we have to have that water to survive. As far as transportation, in order to have a train that runs from one end of Austin to Dallas, or to Dallas to Houston, why would that be funded and not educate our kids?
Well, because the people who wrote the budget decided to fill all of their stuff before what really mattered.
So we have to understand is what you said was they were taking money out of the rainy weather fund.
Rainy day fund, yes, sir.
Rainy day fund, excuse me, to fund these projects. That rainy day fund, if you look around at some of these people here, they have kids, they have grandkids, you have 2 daughters. There's no more rainy days unless we support them.
Right.
And we support them right now.
Right. And let me tell you, one of the other things that I didn't talk about is when the stimulus package came in, the state saw a huge infusion of money that came into the state. So what we did was we took that money and then we gave a bunch of it to the schools. Okay. Now this was a 2-year fix. This was not a permanent solution. And what we did was we gave them all this extra money, right? And a lot of the school districts spent it all like it was going to continue to come instead of a quick fix. Now luckily, our people here in HEB had the foresight to not do that and plan for the future with that money. A lot better than most of the other school districts in the area. But that money got cut off. So a lot of people said the public schools were cut $5 billion out of education. We did go back in and put a couple billion more back into education that wasn't there before. Now, whether you agree with that or not, I will tell you the votes to make that happen were there. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is when that proposal first came out, they had a whole formula of how only certain districts were going to see that money. And HEB ISD wasn't going to see a dollar. Literally. We were not going to get anything. But some of those school districts were going to get a lot more. So me and the representative from Colleyville, Giovanni Capriglione, got together and said, you know what? This is going to happen. They're going to spend the money and our community's not going to get any of it. So we built a coalition with Republicans and Democrats, because it wasn't a party issue, it was certain districts over certain districts, and we said, we're going to apply this money across the board instead of picking the winners and losers of the school districts to make sure that our kids here in HEB got their fair share, because they don't get to decide how much money they get. So we have to fight for them. But I agree with what you said, and I appreciate your comment, and I appreciate you standing up and saying that you're a Democrat. Okay? No, I'm serious, because let me tell you something. That's what we're missing in Austin, is people don't stand on their principles. And that's why certain legislators get beat up down there, because they don't even know who they are. They go like this and figure out the wind. And what we need are people who are willing to stand up for what they believe and fight passionately about it. Okay? Because I guarantee you, the email privacy bill, my coalition was the far right, Tea Party, and the Democrats. We were fighting the establishment Republicans on that bill. On the military families, it was the same deal. So for me, depending on who you ask, I'm one of the most conservative members of the Texas House. I don't care about that. I don't. What I care about is that I looked to you guys, I stood out in front of these polls, I knocked on your door, I looked you in the eye, I shook your hand, and I told you this is what I'm going to do. And I did it.
Oh, yeah.
And I appreciate, truly appreciate people who are motivated by their principles rather than the party, because it's all hogwash. Yes, sir.
Well, I appreciate texting. I really do. Because as I told you and several of the other candidates, I'm a father. And I'm very proud of that fact, that I'm a father. And I've said to some of the candidates, I gotta tell you, as soon as I see your flyers, and I see conservative on them, I just follow them. You know, I mean, I have a problem with that, because that tells me, are you open-minded enough to see the whole issue? And that's what I want to be assured of, is that you see the big picture. You know, not just one path, but the whole path.
And you know, look, the word conservative doesn't mean much anymore either. I don't know a Republican who's running in the primary that won't tell you he's a Reagan conservative anymore. What matters and what I truly believe in, more than party or anything else, is number one, my faith. But number two, I believe in limited government and I believe in personal responsibility. I don't think that government can fix our problems. I think they can fix some, and I do believe that there's a proper role of government. But those are my two core convictions. I believe that individuals can get big and people are empowered and children have a future when they're allowed to succeed without government holding them down. That's what it comes down to. I think that's it. I'm going to stay around for a few minutes and talk to some of you guys. I appreciate y'all coming out.